It's about saying to the Russians and Chinese in pretty open code, you guys can run your area, we run our area.
Yes.
It's about time you started drawing down some of your investments in the ports, in the supply chains, et cetera, et cetera. This isn't just about Venezuela, and they will move on to Cuba at some point.
We've been listening to Mike Waltz, the American representative there, and listening to that along with us, we have the Times World Affairs editor live on the line, Catherine Philp. Hello to you, Catherine.
Hi there, John.
Hi, it's great to have you back. And also a big welcome to Tim Marshall, the author and foreign affairs commentator and analyst. Hi to you, Tim.
Hello there, John.
Hi, welcome to the show as always. Catherine, can I come to you first? Just picking up on what we heard there from Mike Waltz, the American representative, saying, as we've heard already over the weekend, this was a police operation. There's no American occupation in Venezuela. We know that there's no significant American presence in Venezuela. And yet we've heard President Trump saying that America is running the place. Can you make sense of that for me?
I don't think any of us can right now, because we don't actually know what role, what participation there was in Maduro's capture by people who are still in power in Venezuela, what level of conversations and deal making there might have been there. Just reacting immediately to what Waltz was saying there, that was apples and oranges. It was all over the place. Firstly, he's saying that Maduro's a narco-terrorist drug trafficker. And then he's moving on very quickly to saying that he's an illegitimate president. Well, that's got nothing to do with the drug case against him.
No.
There is now an indictment out on that. I have to say it's very thin on detail, and a lot of people have, expressed interest in exactly what evidence is going to come up at the trial. But yeah, I think we've got a very, very, very confused messaging from a country, from an administration that have made it very clear since Maduro's capture that this was about getting the American oil companies back into Venezuela.
Yes.
And sort of revenge for the fact that the oil industry was nationalized in Venezuela and American oil companies lost out on that. So, I mean, he's been very clear about that. We're still not clear about this, whether or not he thinks they are running Venezuela. He may mean this through, having done a deal or possibly simply coerced Maduro's vice president into acting in the interests of the Americans. Again, that's a bit of a technicality if you claim that you haven't taken over a country simply because you have it on puppet strings. And the other thing that's going on, of course, is that Venezuela is largely blockaded, and it could both by sea, although that could be possible to evade it. Also, several of its borders are closed. So, a lot of things could happen on the ground in Venezuela in the coming days, including that it may simply start running out of things it needs. And we'll have to decide, or the Trump administration will have to decide whether it owns that problem.
Yes. So Tim, through the tangle, the fog of White House explanations and justifications for the operation in Venezuela that Catherine was describing there, I mean, some things are clear, aren't they? Which is that the White House ambitions are very focused and very openly focused on Venezuela's oil and mineral wealth. And against that background, the allusions to a better life for Venezuelans and a future democratic elections in that country, that does seem to be a very low priority now, Tim.
Very much. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. You can make the argument, post what happened in Iraq, that it's not time to completely dismantle the regime. I'm not necessarily making this argument, but when the Americans dismantled Saddam Hussein's regime and stupidly got rid of 300,000 of their soldiers who all went home and, with their guns, what you don't want is that happening here. Because and this actually explains, I think, partially and only partially, why Trump has just dismissed the idea that Maria Corina Machado, might take over, because she's on record as saying that she will jail all the regime members. So, of course, if he says publicly, right, we're going to bring her in, and all the regime members who are still the ones with the guns, it's very
Yes.
important to remember that, then they're simply not going to cooperate. So I agree with Catherine. It's clear that they are cooperating up to a point. And so what we're going to see is how much are they going to cooperate on allowing Chevron and the other big American oil companies back into Venezuela, whilst some sort of transition is negotiated. I think, as the Constitution says, that they should be holding a presidential election within 30 days
Yes.
is a little bit optimistic.
Yes, yes, and meanwhile we have the new president, or the standing president of Venezuela, still talking about Maduro being the president. Which I suppose, if that's the steady position, then the constitutional obligation for 30 days.
Briefly, John, I think they have to price that in. I mean,
Yes.
also, today they've actually published the state of emergency, which
Yes.
says anyone supporting this American operation, we're going to go after them.
Yes.
I think that's all priced in. They have to say that.
Yes.
They can't just say, yeah, actually, we were part of this.
Indeed.
And, I think that a lot of these public statements are priced in.
Yes, and Catherine, while we look at the evidence and hear what's said and being published in our conventional way, we also read in the Washington Post that Maria Corina Machado, the Nobel Prize winning opposition leader in Venezuela, she isn't the Venezuelan president now because she took the Nobel Prize and didn't refuse to take it in tribute to Donald Trump. This is apparently from the Washington Post, according to insiders at the White House.
Oh, nothing would surprise me. I think that Donald Trump has surely got to wave goodbye to his aspirations to get a Nobel Peace Prize after this latest action and some of the threats that he's been banding around. I mean, there's definitely, if there's one common theme about some of his messaging, it's definitely like, that everyone must pander to him and do what he says. So
Yes.
he's made that very clear to Rodriguez as well, the vice president, that she needs to go along with it. It's also a message, I would say, to the other countries that he's been threatening
Yes.
in the last few days, to Colombia, to Cuba, even to Greenland, possibly even to Iran. I mean, he's inserted himself into that recently, and he has made it known that he'd like to be the man who topples the regime in Iran. So yeah, I think that it's an extraordinary moment. But this idea that that the American oil companies are just going to pile back into Venezuela, that it is not how vast multinational companies work. Chevron are actually still there because they did a deal with the Venezuelan state company, so they're still there to some degree. Oil companies tend to be pretty leery of getting into an unstable situation.
Yes.
Even mining companies are. That's why we still haven't seen anyone go into Afghanistan and go after their minerals.
Yes.
It's still so
And the
unstable.
Chinese have got the long-term contracts anyway, as Catherine knows, So the American oil companies would have to go in there, and there would be all sorts of legal problems because the Chinese have got most of the contracts.
Yes, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when oil reserves and massively lucrative reconstruction projects were supposed to be part of the thinking behind the Iraq invasion. And
We remember how long it took that oil production to get back to anywhere near what it was before. That took 20 years.
Yes.
So you've also got the fact that Venezuela has this oil that's actually very, very difficult to extract. It's the heavy stuff, and Canada has it too. So it's expensive to extract, and it's not really where oil companies have been going recently.
Yeah.
Even those who are stuck to that traditional fossil fuel, not diversifying streams. Venezuela's oil is not the kind they want.
Which is why this is about a lot more than just Venezuela and oil. It's about Latin America. It's about the Monroe Doctrine. It's about the United States telling Iran, who operate Hezbollah units and Revolutionary Guard units throughout Latin America, South America, get out of town. And it's about saying to the Russians and Chinese, in pretty open code, you guys can run your area, we run our area.
Yes.
It's about time you started drawing down some of your investments in the ports, in the supply chains, et cetera, et cetera. This isn't just about Venezuela, and they will move on to Cuba at some point. And they've already signaled they might move on Colombia because in October, the Treasury Department indicted the president of Colombia. Yeah. It's part of a big picture, which is the return to normality, which is actually the Monroe Doctrine.
My word, we are talking about hemispherical domination, a world in which $17 trillion worth of Venezuelan oil is just a small part of the formula. I would love to talk to you both all day, but I know I can't, and I guess you have other things to do too. Catherine Philp and Tim Marshall, thank you so much for joining me.